Okay, man, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. Now, come on, now crank this motherfucker up.
Break it down like this.
Hello, Internet. Gino, that Guido Grieco here again with another episode of Deep Listens. And today we are going to be getting floppy with Floppy Knights, which is a card-based strategy game. Two things I love, two great tastes that taste great together. And joining me to discuss this floppiest of games is Pete Busby. Hello, Pete.
Hey, I'm always pumped to talk strategy games, and this one, it gets pretty Fire Emblem adjacent, so I'm always on board with that. This week's fun fact, it's a quick one, it's an easy one, but I found it whimsical, so I like it. Flamingos can only eat when their heads are upside down.
What?
Because of the structures in their beak of their mouth, they can only eat with their head upside down, and the way they basically eat is underwater. They suck water in through the front, shoot it out through the sides, and weird little mouth parts collect all the tasty, tasty brine shrimp. So even when they're in the zoo and they get like pellet food, they still pump water through it. So the flamingos can eat it upside down and soggy, just the way they like it.
So
Perhaps.
they like invert their head completely 180, like upside down to eat the food?
Yeah. Yep. It's the only way they can do it.
Huh.
Yeah.
Weird. One weird fact about flamingos.
They're weird birds.
They are. They get their color from brine shrimp. Other facts, I assume, are true about them.
I think they might. Don't quote me on this one, but I feel like they pee on their legs.
That sounds
like
right.
Deliberately for some reason.
Let's
I'll
just
fact
slander
check that.
flamingos for this podcast.
Creepy pervert birds.
Yes. We are also joined, as always, by M. Palladino. Hello, M.
While we wait for M to return, I did fact check it. I'm not going to go that far, but apparently flamingos do pee on their legs to keep cool.
Excellent. Okay. I'm glad that you knew about flamingos peeing on their legs just in the back of the recesses of your mind. You did not look that up. You didn't need anything. That was just, it's in there.
It's not really flamingo facts. It's peeing on yourself facts.
I see.
It just happens to be flamingos this time.
I left for 2 seconds, and now we're peeing on ourselves.
We learned a fun fact about flamingos. You know, you'll learn about it when you edit the show.
Okay.
How's it going, Em?
It's going okay. I mean, not really. The world is on fire, but what else is new? It's particularly on fire this week, so happy to play a cute little game that takes your mind off it.
Yeah, so start this off right at the top. The world's on fire, and we're based out of the U.S., so it is extra on fire this week because it's Supreme Court decision week, apparently. Like every decision from like the last several months on trials and different cases that impact large-scale laws in the United States are all coming out one after another. And for those who are not super into U.S. politics or have not been paying attention to the news, there was a recent Supreme Court ruling that overruled Roe versus Wade, which was a court case that basically guaranteed women's reproductive right to choose for abortion and other types of health care, basically, available to folks who are pregnant. And it basically rolled back the guarantees of those rights throughout the United States. It is now a state-by-state thing. So given that, reproductive rights are under assault in the United States, and, you know, Americans have entered the summer season with fewer rights than we had going into it. And, you know, even worse than that, this Roe versus Wade decision, rolling back almost 50 years of precedent, lays the groundwork for even more assaults on a host of other settled cases like gay marriage, right, access to contraception. There's a whole bunch of other laws that have been put into jeopardy. And given that, we at the Deep Listens family of podcasts are trying to take some action, and we need your help. So, of course, we want you to learn about, you know, what elected officials are in your area, assuming you're in the U.S., and, you know, vote every single election. Even if you're not in the U.S., pay attention to this sort of stuff, because just because it happened here doesn't mean it can't happen someplace else. We'd also like you to consider contributing to the National Network of Abortion Funds. The NNAB, or NNAB, is a clearinghouse of regional abortion and reproductive health organizations across the United States. Their goal is to remove financial and logistical barriers to abortion access, centering on those looking for assistance and organizing at the intersection of racial, economic, and reproductive justice. You can contribute to the National Network of Abortion Funds directly at abortionfunds.org/donate. You can also use their site to locate an abortion fund in your area, so you can keep your money local and aid your neighbors. So please do consider. We will hopefully be having some fundraising stuffs in the works, more directly, fundraising streams and those sorts of things. But until we have more news, if you can, if you're in a position to donate, please do. Any thoughts, co-hosts?
There's a million quality abortion stats you could throw out. The vast majority of the not late term. It's much, much safer than actually carrying a child to term. And it's been around for centuries. So if we're, taking in the Supreme Court's bullshit precedent argument, there's a whole long precedent to it. Bonus Supreme Court fun fact: the Constitution makes no claims about the power or makeup of the Supreme Court. All it says is there must be a Supreme Court, full stop. We could do whatever we want with it, and I stand by abolishing it completely. But that's just me.
Yeah, my favorite Supreme Court fact is that judicial review, which is the basically power that the Supreme Court executes to say which laws are valid or invalid, also is mentioned nowhere in the Constitution and has no legal backing other than we all just kind of agree that they get to say what laws are valid or not.
Yeah, Marbury versus Madison took care of that.
Yeah, so fuck the Supreme Court. Em, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah. That last bit pretty much summarized what I was going to say. I am only filled with white hot rage. So thank you for putting it better than I could.
No problem. So with that, I think I'm not going to do our normal plug. You can always, I'll do at least the plugs for how you can get in touch with the show. You can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. In lieu of supporting the normal Patreon plug, I will again say you can donate to the National Network of Abortion Funds at abortionfunds.org/donate. We have our Discord report, but I think much of the discussion on the Discord this week was around this because people were impacted by it. We had a little bit of other stuff, but it's really secondary. So I'm also going to kind of seed my my obsession of the week. Check out, do what you can. We'll have more information soon, hopefully, on some fundraisers we're working on. But until then, let's just, do what we came here to do, talk about Floppy Knights. So I picked Floppy Knights, and I've been waiting for this game for quite some time. So you know what? I'll actually do the honors.
Go for it, Gino.
Rare that I actually described the game, but Floppy Knights is a turn-based, card-based strategy game. Think your Advanced Wars, your Final Fantasies Tactics, your Triangle Strategy, all of those sorts of games. But the combat and the units are all card-based. So you draw a hand every turn. Your hand has cards that allow your characters to move, to attack, or to play new units onto the board. And your goals vary from level to level, but you're generally moving units around, attacking enemy units, and trying to be, the best strategist you can be. And the game was developed by Rose City Games over the course of last 2-3 years, and it just came out. So it also stars Phoebe, who is a girl with a robot arm named Carlton. You summon the characters in this world. They are Floppy Knights. Floppy Knights is actually describing the monsters you summon. Each Floppy Knight is basically a floppy disk encoded with magic that summons them and makes them real. And you are taking on odd jobs. Each level is a different odd job that you're taking on because you want to earn enough money to move out of your parents' house. So, Em, what did you think of the setup of this game? The storytelling setup, because I think we've got plenty to discuss mechanically, but I feel like the framing narrative is pretty good here.
Yeah, it's cute. Phoebe's cute. She has some good dialogue with Carlton. And what better premise to a video game than you need to make money to move out of your parents' house. It's simple enough that it gets you to the action really quickly, and then you get to start playing around with cards. I liked it. I think more games that we play should be like these cute little characters, because I don't know, it's wholesome.
Is Phoebe canonically bad at magic? Like, is that why she went the science route?
That seems to be what it's implying, yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't want to be a magical blacksmith like her mom. She wants to do something different. But
Do we know what her dad's occupation is?
I don't think they said. Her mom's a magical blacksmith, and then
he's a stay-at-home dad.
He also does magic.
Yeah. I think everyone does magic except Phoebe, who's got a robot arm.
Yeah.
But I like that the dad's like, look, if this whole science thing doesn't work out, you're going to work at the magical blacksmiths with your mom. You got to abandon this science dream. So the first odd jobs you get, so the game kind of throws you in with a plant deck and tells you to go take out goblins. You get the canonical first mission of every single video game ever made. Go defeat some goblins. Em, how did you find the setup, like the actual initial set of missions and decks and such?
The initial mission is pretty simple. All the starting missions are pretty late as far as a tactics game goes, because they're trying to introduce you to the card mechanics, trying to get you into like a little bit of the deck building. So you start off with a single unit, which is your commander, who is Captain Thistle, who is an absolute unit, not to not pun not intended. Your commander is basically like your main unit, and then you can spawn other ones, but if the commander dies, then you lose. So you kind of want them to be a little bit more protected. The Captain Thistle is very good because he moves pretty consistently, I think 4 spaces, which is pretty good. He's got a pretty big attack and a lot of health. So a good starting unit, and then you go to town. You're fighting goblins, as Gino said. They are not very strong, and you basically just run them through with Captain Thistle, and then you start to accumulate more cards with each level. And you can upgrade your deck from there.
Yeah, so
They
Captain...
also-
Oh, go ahead, Pete.
Yeah, just, the goblins sort of don't seem to understand the concept of farming.
No, it's ground food.
Like, they don't understand that somebody's grown these crops and they can't have them.
They want to learn how to cast magical ground food.
Yeah, I support they understand that property is theft and that food should be communal, and I support them for that.
And they also understand that theft is cool.
At one point, Phoebe tries to give them seeds, and they're like, what is this, some kind of grub? Like, they don't understand what you're giving them. They're funny.
Yeah. And also with the commander thing, like your commander basically has the card that it is, so you cast it for free on the first turn of every game. Then it will have a card that it creates every single turn. So every single commander will create some kind of movement card every turn. So you always have at least one move available to you in terms of repositioning your characters. And then commanders will also come with signature cards. So Captain Thistle comes with Sow, which is a movement card. It's 1 energy, and it's 1 energy to move a unit, and then it flips to Reap, which just lets a unit attack, and then it flips back to Sow. So it's kind of move, attack, move, attack, move, attack. And then he also has Thorns, which gives a unit +1 attack, and then the card destroys itself after you cast it. So you can cast it once, and then after that, it's gone. So your commander kind of
And
changes.
one more.
Oh, what was that?
And one more. The main movement thing that you get every turn.
Yeah, is Plow Ahead.
Plow Ahead, yes.
Which is move a
That's
unit.
also very good.
Yeah, and they get +1 speed this turn, so you can move your unit even further. So it kind of sets you up for big dynamic moves. So your commander kind of sets the tone of your deck. It will basically give you what move card you get every turn, it will give you 2 cards. It's always 2 cards that kind of tell you what your commander's about and make your deck more effective. And then you're locked in. Your deck is always locked to have 5 move cards. So just move a unit. There's nothing else. And beyond that, you can add up to 30 cards, but there's no minimum deck size. There's a maximum of 30, no minimum. So
I think it's 12, isn't it?
is it 12? I never hit the minimum.
Yeah, I think you were pretty close to just like hovering around 12 when I saw you playing. So I don't think you can go under either 12 or 10.
Yeah, I think M's right with 12.
Okay. So like the minimum is 12, but there's a pretty wide range between the minimum deck size and the maximum deck size. So Pete, have you played deck builders before?
No. The only time I do is for the show. I'll put it that way.
Okay. So in terms of deck construction, like what is your knowledge of like the theory of how many cards you should put in a deck and why you should put X number of cards? Do you have any familiarity with that, or were you just kind of like putting whatever cards you wanted in the deck and got up to 30?
So kind of, but I do know that there's sort of one big trade-off, right, between like versatility, like putting in more good cards, and consistency. So like if you put in 30 cards, you're only going to get the cards you want every so often, whereas if you only put in 12, you have a very consistent deck. You should know what you'll get most times.
Yeah, and you draw 5, I believe it's 5 cards a turn. So if you get down to 12, basically you'll see every card in your deck every 2.5 turns. So you basically, like you said, Pete, have this trade-off between consistency and versatility. And this game even compounds that decision a little bit more by having cards that destroy themselves after you cast them. So you put them in your deck, but then the first time you use them, they're gone. So your deck leans itself out as you go. You also have units, which like say for example the most basic of unit, the succulent kicker, which is it's a little aloe or something in a jar that has legs and an angry face, and you can play this unit, and when you play it, it adds a kick card and a hop card to your deck. Kick is an attack that will push an enemy back 1 square, and hop is a free movement that destroys itself when you're done with it. So you've got these units that when they're in play, they are no longer in your deck, but they will make cards that go into your deck. So you've kind of got this trade-off where like your units are the unit that you want to actually play and have in play, but they're also these other cards that you might want access to. So some units, it really behooves you to bounce them back to your hand, replay them again because you want the cards they make more than you want the unit. Some units you want them to stay in play forever because you don't, they're much better moving around on the board. And what kind of units did you gravitate towards? Like, what kind of strategies did you employ?
Yeah, so the little guy, the succulent kicker, he's pretty good just because of the cards that he generates, and if you need something to secure a spawn point, perhaps, he's good to just like sit on a point. The other ones that I primarily used the plant deck.
Mm-hmm.
Just because that was the starting one, and it kind of had the most versatile arrangement of cards. There's the Bamboomer, which is a ranged unit, so it can only hit 2 spaces away, which is a little bit far, but it also hits very hard. It does like 4 damage, which can take out most smaller enemies. Another one, which I like to have at least a copy of, was the I call him Cactus Jack, but that's not actually his name. He looks like a big old
the barrel cactus.
Barrel cactus, yes. He's a big old cactus, and when he attacks, he hits all the squares around him for 3 damage, and he also gets a card when you play him that restores 3 damage to any unit. So he was kind of one of the tankier units in the deck, and you can kind of position him in like choke points, and he does a good job of clearing stuff out. So those were the units that I mostly used. I'm trying to think if the monster deck had any that stood out, but I didn't play the monster deck very often. And then there were a lot of good ones in the hooligans deck.
Yeah, so there's three decks that you eventually get access to as you play through the game. The plants, the monsters, and the hooligans, and they kind of unlock one after another as you progress through the game. You are basically stuck with plants for a while. The game will give you a bunch of plant cards. You also get money after completing levels, and that money can be taken to the blacksmith to make new cards. So you can basically buy cards, and the cards you buy, like it's not like you can buy infinite. Basically, buying a card just unlocks its availability for your deck. So you can't get completely degenerate, like just make a deck of all the most powerful card. But it gives you more additional options. It allows you to configure your deck as you want. And some of the cards you can unlock are really, really broken. But there's also no restrictions that make it so that your plant deck can only have plant cards, your monster deck can only have monster cards. Basically, your commander will determine, what move card you're getting every turn, the two signature cards, and the commander itself. But then everything else about the deck can be a mishmash of anything. Pete, what did you gravitate towards?
Sure. So I played mostly a monster deck with some sort of hybrid with the plants. So my commander was Big Mad.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I was like, Big Mad, that sounds just like me. And then I started using him. So Big Mad's gimmick is that every time he takes a shot of damage, his attack boosts by 1. So basically what I would try to do is I would do little chip damage using the monster deck, because there are a lot of cards in there that in return for like one unit or 2 units of damage, you get a certain buff. So I would try to stack all those on Big Mad, and then I would use some healing cards from the plant deck to bring Big Mad back up to full health. And then I just sort of tanked him around the map, blowing stuff up. The other good thing about the monster deck, it has 2 key mechanics. One, it has, I forget, I just called him Mothman.
The moth is named
the Behemoth.
The Behemoth. I should remember. That's a great name. So the Behemoth, low health, but they can fly. So like Em was saying for the succulent kicker, they're very nice to just plant on respawn points because they can get there quickly. The monster deck also has, I think it was a monster deck, has 2 cards. One that grants you a free movement card for every unit you have on the field, and a sort of similar one that gives you a free attack card for every unit you have on the field. So both of those make it real easy to sort of just spam movement or attacks, and then I could fling Big Mad around the map as much as I wanted.
Yeah, and so the cards you're talking about are Rally, which adds a charge, which is basically a free movement every time for every unit you have. And then what is the one for
Volley? Maybe it's an arrow
Volley
thing.
Fire, which again, so these 2 cost 2 energy. So your base energy you get per turn is 5. So Volley Fire and Rally, both of which if you just have 2 units, it's like you paid for 2 moves or attacks straight up. Usually they cost 1. If you have anything more than 2 units, they are strictly better than drawing an attack card. You get so much more value out of them, and that's before you do anything to reduce their costs or do anything nutty. So the Volley Fire and the Rally both get unlocked when you get access to monsters, and I think like this game, at first I thought that the plants, the monsters, and the hooligans were each kind of different parts of a mechanical, for lack of a better term, color pie. Like Magic the Gathering, red, black, white, blue, green. Each of those different colors has mechanics that they do. They have like different styles of play that they enable. I thought that the plants were, you're green, you're going to play these units and they're going to be pretty sturdy and they're pretty decent in combat. Plants also have some mechanics like Uproot, which not Uproot, Grow, which is a card that upgrades a plant card, and once you upgrade the plant card, like if you upgrade a unit, it'll also upgrade the card that it makes when you play it. So like you can make your Barrel Cactus have 9 starting HP instead of 7. It gets Payback, which means if anyone attacks the Barrel Cactus, it will respond by attacking back. So like upgrading your units is super useful, and Grow felt like a mechanical identity. It also has Plants also has maybe the best card in the game, which is Sunshine, or one of the best cards in the game.
Ooh, that is
very good. Yep.
It's 0 energy, draw 1 card, gain 1 energy next turn. So it's a cantrip in Magic the Gathering terms. It's drawing you a card and it's making your next turn better. and it costs you nothing, so there's no reason to ever take it out of your deck. So, but like the plants, actually, many of the plant units are just strictly worse than hooligan cards or than monster cards. Like the plants are the most straightforward units. You're just going to play them. You're going to use most of your energy moving them and attacking. And we didn't mention this, but every unit gets one free attack per turn. So you at least get to attack something adjacent to you most of the time. And that's kind of your way to make up for the fact that sometimes you won't draw an attack or you won't draw a move. So the game is giving you one move card every turn, and it's giving every one of your units free attacks. So you're not completely locked out of playing the game if you draw poorly. But the plant deck is just play things, play it like it's Advanced Wars. The monster deck starts getting into kind of health as resource sort of stuff, which is pretty prevalent in Magic the Gathering, and it's usually one of the stronger mechanics. So like Pete, what you said, there are cards like, for example, Get Angry, which is one of the signature cards for Big Mad, which causes the unit to take 2 damage, and then it gives it +1 attack. But since Big Mad gets stronger when you damage Big Mad, it's actually +3 attack for Big Mad when you use it on him. You've also got things like, what are the other ones? Breakthrough, which is 0 energy, move a unit, and it takes 2 self-damage. So it's a free move, and it's self-damage, so, Big Mad and Jessica, the other commander for the monsters, really appreciate that. So there's a little bit more complexity. You get more cards that generate you energy in exchange for damaging yourself. You've got card draw that's for free in exchange for damaging yourself. All that stuff, super good. Like Thunderstruck, I feel, is the most iconic card from the monsters deck, which is 0 energy. A unit takes 10 self-damage, draw 3 cards, gain 2 energy. So basically, kill one of your units.
Whoa.
And then you refill your hand and get 2 extra energy. You can do, some nasty stuff with all of that extra energy, all those extra cards, all that extra velocity. But then once you get to the hooligans, the hooligans are just better in many ways than the cards that came before them, by a lot.
Hooligans are wild. It's hard to nail down what their mechanics are. They're just good. They're
just better.
Yeah.
Take, for example, so we were talking about the Succulent Kicker before, which is 1 energy for a unit that has 2 health. It attacks for 2 damage. It can move 4 units, 4 squares, and then it can attack 1 square away, and then it makes a kick and a hop, which is just an attack and a free move. And then compare that with Teen Spirit, which is a ghost on a skateboard.
Maybe the best just monster design in the whole game as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, for sure. It's so good. It's also 1 energy to play, but it's got 5 life to the Succulent Kicker's 2. It also does 2 damage, so also doesn't hit very hard, but it moves 5 squares instead of 4, has the same attack range, and the card it adds is Shred, which is a card that moves your unit, and then it adds a card called Manual to your hand, and Manual is a free move. So you basically get way better movement out of Teen Spirit. It adds a much better card to your deck. It's a better unit because it moves further, it has more HP. And so, once I realized that the hooligans were just strictly better, I realized that the game, some plant cards are worth keeping in your deck because, the Bamboomer, for example, it's one of the only units that can attack 2 squares away and it hits really hard. Or Grow, which upgrades the plant cards in your deck and then destroys itself. So you can just upgrade your Sunshine card. And then, just have an amazing Sunshine when upgraded draws you 3 cards instead of 1, which is savage. Or Uproot, which destroys any card in your hand and draws you 2 cards. So you can use that to get rid of the move cards that are stuck in your deck to lean your deck out. But really, you want to be playing with, by the later levels, your hooligans because they get extra energy. The signature card. Could you explain what the signature card 1000 Cuts does?
Yeah. I was going to talk about Total Chaos first because that
both
seems
of them.
Very important. These are the 2 signature cards of hooligans. Total Chaos is a 0-cost card, so you don't pay anything for it. And then for the turn, each time an enemy takes damage, you draw 1 card. So already very good. As long as you are attacking, you will end up getting just probably your entire deck if you are playing a small deck. 1000 Cuts, when used with Total Chaos, 1000 Cuts gives you 2 cut cards in your hand for each unit you have. So if you have 5 units on the board, which is the max I think you can have.
You could have
Or-
more, but it's hard to do.
Yeah, it's harder to do. A lot of levels like have one use only spawn points, so you probably don't get much past 5. But let's say you have 5, you get 10 cut cards, which are going to deal a little bit of damage. And if you have total chaos, you will draw a card off of them. And when 1,000 cuts is used, it then flips to sweet move, which is add 2 movement cards to your hand. So you basically can just like play 1,000 cuts for 2 and then attack any number of times, basically clear out anything that's in front of you, then play sweet move and then move around as far as you can go, more or less. It is like reduced damage and movement. I think
It's
it does
half.
like half. Yeah.
But it's rounded up.
Yeah, but it's rounded up, so it's still very good. Like if you have a 3 movement card, you're going 2. It's very efficient. It just makes the Hooligans deck like it cycles so well. You can just go off basically. You can't play infinitely, I don't think, just because of how the deck is structured. You will eventually like gas yourself out, but you can go almost infinite. It's pretty good.
Yeah, so like Concoctor, which is the second Hooligans commander, his move card is every turn
Okay.
you get move a unit and then it gains then gain 1 energy next turn. So like the Hooligans deck is just operating with way more resources than the other 2 decks. So at first I was thinking, okay, plants is kind of green, red, like monsters is kind of black red, self damage, aggressive sort of stuff, and then okay, Hooligans is kind of like blue black kind of, you're doing like you're cutting costs, you're getting extra resources, you're drawing a bunch of cards, doing card advantage things. But then I realized like no, the plants deck is like a starter deck you'd buy at a store for $10. The monsters deck is like you took that starter deck and added a few cards because you opened some packs, and then the Hooligans deck is like you've built a competitive deck, and they just basically dole out the resources little by little by little to make that clear to you. But as someone who plays a lot of card games, like getting to the Hooligans deck, like they saved so many different effects that are fundamentally broken for when you got to Hooligans. So like there's a card Light It Up, which is 1 energy, and it discounts the cost of other cards by 1. Discounts the cost of another card. So if you discount a card that costs 1, now it's free. If that gets out of hand pretty quick. Call for Backup, which creates a single-use deployment zone in an empty tile next to a friendly unit, so you can just like deploy your monsters deep into enemy territory, and that's not single use. You can just keep doing that, which is really strong. You've got stuff like Now and Later, draw 2 cards for free, and then you lose 1 energy next turn. You've got 1 card Bootleg, which discards your hands and then draws 5 cards, which is really good if your hand is clogged up with garbage. Like a bunch of really powerful effects that usually are not present, that are just not present in the other 2 decks. So once I realized that, the game became much easier, and that's how I was able to get through it.
They also like have cards that build off of mechanics from other decks. Like Poison Lance is the one I think of, which is a line attack. There is a card in the Monsters deck, which is a line attack, Shockwave.
Yep.
Except Poison Lance also poisons enemies. So for 3 turns, it's going to lose 1 HP while it is poisoned. So it basically invalidates using Shockwave in your Hooligans deck. You could just like advance the cards to their more efficient use. Or you can have both of them. Like there's nothing stopping you from just loading up on like advanced attacks that cost 1 rather than having like generic attack cards, which by the end of the game you probably want to reduce as many attack and move cards as you can. You can't get rid of 5 move cards, which I think is a little rougher when you're getting to later levels and you have really efficient ways of moving. Like I would rather have a Shred, which is a 1-cost move and adds another move to your hand, than have move. So it kind of limits you a little bit, and then you'll end up having like you draw 4 of your moves or something, which can be rough. But I don't know. There's something to be said for not letting you take those out of your deck, which I think is worth talking about as well.
Yeah, they basically put 5 borderline dead cards in your deck
Yeah.
that you kind of have to work around, which is annoying, but not the end of the world. You can work around it. So Pete, as someone who doesn't play a lot of card games, but who does play a decent number of tactics games, how did you find the combat?
So one thing I really appreciated in this one, and it's sort of a hallmark of tactics games like this, is the emphasis on range. So one of the most important mechanics you can sort of understand early on, at least for me, is that you want to place, a bulky unit, like for me was Big Mad or one of your armored units or the barrel cactus, right on the edge of your enemy's range and sort of draw them in, and then you just sort of burst fire and lay waste to whoever it is you can reach. So it was nice to see, strategy elements, placement, movement, terrain effects. We didn't mention those yet, but there are a lot of terrain effects too. The only thing that sort of annoyed me, and maybe I just didn't try hard enough, I don't think you can't destroy the respawn points, can you?
No. You can occupy them, though.
Yes.
You can't just stand on top of them and deny respawns that way.
Yeah, so that's the only thing I would have liked to see was maybe be able to destroy them, but maybe that would have made things a little too easy. But it was nice that you had, I don't want to phrase it, Fire Emblem and like even Advance Wars in a certain respect, like you have to really keep track of everything you have. Whereas there was a nice sort of almost disposability to this one, especially like Gino, you said sometimes health becomes a mechanic. So you can just blow up one of your units to get a whole bunch of more cards or energy. So it's nice to sort of be able to make those. Maybe it says something disturbing about me, but I enjoyed making those sort of tactical sacrifices.
Well,
I was thinking about this too. Gino?
No, all I was going to say is, like, it is fun when you're like, well, succulent kicker, you're going to have to take one for the team, bud.
Yeah.
You're about to get struck by lightning, bro. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah. It's like coming from Fire Emblem, which I've played a fair bit of. The usual way you go about it is just like let your tanks take a hit, and then you want your rest of your army to stay back. But in this situation, it's more efficient sometimes to like send the cactus forward, and then the barrel cactus will get God eventually, and then you will get the chance to respawn the barrel cactus, and that'll give you another like 3 health card. You kind of have with that. There are a few levels where you do not get opportunity because of a rule, I guess, which is like don't lose any units. And so if your strategy is, I'm going to restore my health every so often, and then you cannot lose the barrel cactus, it becomes a little bit more difficult. There are ways around that, like you could use, there's a card that recalls certain...
Yeah, there's Second Wind,
Checkpoint,
which returns a unit to your hand and draws 1 card. There's also Checkpoint when you get to certain spawn points that let you return things. And then there's Regrow from the plant deck, which returns a unit to your hand.
Yeah, so there are ways to do it. And it's a little tougher because, with one-use spawn points, you might just hamstring yourself by accident until you get Call for Backup, which is way late in the game. Which is another thing we should talk about, how the stronger cards are dispersed to the back half.
Yeah, so the stronger cards, like you said, like Regrow is strictly worse than Second Wind. Regrow returns a unit to your hand, Second Wind returns a unit to your hand and draws you a card. Like, you are basically expected to be going back into your deck, making tweaks. And there's also, like, certain levels will have terrain that you might want certain types of move cards. Like there's a move card called I believe the Bamboomer makes it Roots, which moves a unit extra tiles if they're on a forest tile. So if you're in a level with a lot of forests, having Roots in your deck gives you much more mobility than if you had there's a different move card that it's called Rehydrate. It moves a unit, and if they're on water, it moves them extra tiles. So like picking the specific movements, the specific units that can attack given what the environment is, like that's, you could spend a lot of time fiddling before you get into a level, right? You get into the level, you see what the task is. Some levels are really focused on taking one unit and moving it all over the place. Some levels are really focused on you going wide. And so the ones where you go wide, you want more units. The ones where you're controlling a single unit, you really want more attacks and moves that are more efficient than the default ones that come with your units. Another thing that I noticed, and Em, you could probably chime in, I had a hard time keeping all of my units moving unless I was using 1,000 cuts or specific cards. 1,000 cuts, rally, the stuff that lets me move all of my, gives me a bunch of movements per unit. Those allowed me to move my whole army. But when I was playing with the plant deck and I didn't have access to that, I was basically just I was microing around my commander unit because he was just so much stronger than everything else.
That's kind of how it goes unless you put in a bunch of move cards into your other decks. Like, I put Roots and the other one, what is it? Rehydrate into all my decks just because the chance that you are on a forest or a water tile kind of varies, but it's objectively better than just a regular move. If you are not playing if you aren't putting more move cards into your deck, you're going to end up in a situation where you're going to draw all attacks and you're out of range. But if you put too many move cards into your deck, you might just end up drawing all of your move cards at once, or you'll draw the wrong move cards. This is, the balancing act of this kind of card system that is not present in stuff like Fire Emblem, which differentiates it from other tactics games. Like Advanced Wars doesn't have this kind of problem. Not Fire Emblem, Final Fantasy Tactics doesn't run into this. So it's a little bit more of a management on your part. And if you end up getting into a situation where a card is not what you want to be doing too often, you'll probably remove it and replace it for something better as you level up. So it can be tough to wrap your head around if you're not used to this kind of tactical card game situation. But until I want to say the first 4 levels, you're probably fine with basic plant deck, and then after that it ramps up pretty severely. So it depends on where you're at in the game.
So Pete, did you find this game does not have an undo button or most games like this will have a preview of where you're going to move something, and then it'll make you say, confirm that you want to do what you're saying you want to do. Did you miss that undo, or are you really sure you want to do this?
So one thing I did Fire Emblem does this, where you move a unit to a certain spot, and then if you hit attack, it'll show you basically, okay, if you decide to attack, here's what's going to happen. Here's the damage you can expect to do. Here's your hit rate. Here's your crit rate. And this game doesn't have hit rate or crit rate, but I find myself having to double check math a lot, which I don't particularly enjoy. So if it could just show me all right, you're going to move here, and when you attack, you're going to do X. That's going to leave you with this health, them with this health. Do you want to do it? I very much would have appreciated that.
Yeah, and I also the niceties of seeing how much damage you're going to do by hovering over an enemy when you're going to attack them. That would be nice too. There's a good amount of polish that this game is actively still being updated, so it might get there. But there were moments where my hand would be full of 15 cards and I could not hover over the card I wanted to select because the game just would not let me pick the proper card because of some targeting issues. You can't necessarily see what units, how much damage you're going to do. Sometimes I literally just misclicked and my unit would move to the wrong square, and then I was just stuck because there's no undo. Did either of you use the hazard view?
All the time.
Which one? I forget what it's called, but what is hazard view? Is that the one that shows the range?
Yeah, it shows all of the squares where you can get attacked.
Yeah, I would use it, like Em said, every turn.
I did not use it until the end of the game.
I don't think Gino knew it was there until I pointed it out to him.
Huge mechanic to miss Gino.
I just kept clicking on every single unit and then keeping in my brain okay, I can move this many squares and then I can attack this many squares. So this square is safe, right? isn't it? Whereas if you just hit the little like warning icon in the bottom left, it's like, okay, any square that's not red, you are 100% safe.
Yes. While I was watching you stream it, I was like, just hit the little thing in the corner. Gino was like, what? Oh. That's a big, like,
You should
these
do that.
kinds of games. Yeah.
If you play this game, do that.
If you play this game, if you play Fire Emblem, it also has this mechanic, at least in the newer ones.
Does Advance Wars? I think
Advance Wars, I think, does.
something similar, at least.
Yeah.
I can't remember if FF Tactics does or not, though.
I don't think it does.
I don't think so.
At least not the original one.
If you play the Game Boy Advance one too, like some of the range for the attacks in Fire Emblem attacks is so big, the entire screen would just be red. It's like there's nowhere that's safe for you.
Violence.
That's why I had a hard time sometimes, because I would be trying to figure out like a few enemies, and then one enemy would just be like a behemoth or something, which has a very long range, and it would be like, well, the whole thing is red, so this is kind of useless information.
Yeah. Fire Emblem runs into that too sometimes when you get like ballistas, where it's like it's got a 25-foot range. You're like, all right, well, I'm just going to ignore this. But actually, in theirs, you can turn off certain units, which is nice.
Yeah, and I think that this game, it does a good job of communicating it. There were some times where like you would be fighting against a behemoth, and then when it was in your deck, it just behaved differently, which was, I get it from a balance perspective, but sometimes it would mean, oh, I'm looking at a behemoth. I know that it can attack for 3, but I don't remember if it attacks for 3 as an enemy unit, or if it moves as many squares as it does when you're under control of it. So what was the most degenerate thing you did when playing this game? What was the thing that you did where you're like, I'm doing it? Cards.
Oh, boy.
I mean, like I said, I didn't really bother with optimization. I wasn't super concerned about it. So my whole thing was just beating the hell out of Big Mad as much as I could, to get like absolute preposterous damage at a certain point. Like there was one goal where I think it was get like 10 plus damage on like any one unit, and I was like, hell yeah, I'm getting like 15, 20. Let's see how high we can get this guy.
It's very hard to do that without Big Mad on your team.
Oh yeah, it's probably impossible.
I think that's the only way to do it. I think it's because you got the monster deck like level or two before that. They wanted you to like experiment with him. That's a good way to show him off. So good on them.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think I didn't super do anything too egregious. I mean, I would put a grow onto what do you call it? The sunlight.
Onto sunlight.
Sunshine.
Grow
Yeah.
onto sunshine. Yeah, that's a sick 2-card combo.
Which always feels like you're cheating.
What does it
what
bump
else?
it to?
So it draws 3.
Yeah,
Ooh, that's nice.
which is pretty good, and it keeps that for when it cycles. So.
Did you ever do grow onto grow?
Oh no! What does it do?
Does the game just like flush into a black hole?
No, if you do grow onto grow, it makes it so the grow that you're upgrading loses delete, so you can just keep casting it every time you draw it.
Ooh,
That's so good.
that's
And
good.
it gives you 1 energy.
What?
Damn, that's OP.
Yeah, but like this game, there's no hand manipulation. Like you can't keep a card in hand. You will discard your whole hand at the end of every turn. So the only way to guarantee that you end up with these 2-card combos is to just like draw your whole deck or luck into it, which is, it's not the end of the world. I was able to do it plenty of times, but it's much easier later in the game when you get access to the hooligans and all the card draw that comes with them, or if you play a very, very lean deck. But yeah, I found that I basically... So the most degenerate stuff I did would be like Sunshine plus Grow, like you said. But with the Hooligans, I was able to start turns with like 7 energy because I would cast Sunshine, and then I would cast the move card that the Hooligan commander, that Concoctor has, After Effect, which gives you extra energy. And then I would just go like 1,000 cuts with the signature card.
Total
what is it?
Chaos.
Total Chaos. Yeah, 1,000 cuts plus Total Chaos. Draw like my whole deck. Cast all of my free spells, flip 1,000 cuts to sweet move my cards all over the place. That's 4. I had 7, so I still can cast 1,000 cuts again. And then I still have 1 energy left over, assuming I haven't gained energy some other way. So like I took down the final boss, I think, in 2 turn cycles. And the final boss had 50 life. Just because I was able to cast 1,000 cuts and cut them so many times in 1 turn.
You actually killed them with 1,000 cuts.
Yeah, canonical. Also, just getting Behemoth, because Behemoth is the only flying unit in the game. It can ignore terrain, so it can fly over terrain that would block other units. So just taking Behemoth, giving it like 2 big moves, moving it to the opposite side of the field, and just killing. If it's a like mission where you have to kill a specific enemy or a specific target, just moving Behemoth all the way across the map in like 2 turns and then doing it in 1 fell swoop felt really good every time I did it. So like focusing on, let's turn to the story a little bit. So we've got Phoebe, we've got Carlton. We meet her Gary Oak, Alex, and her evil version of Carlton, Snarlton.
Great name, by the way. That's up there with Manly Tinderstaff in our name Hall of Fame.
Yeah, Alex has an eye patch. Snarlton also has an eye patch, even though he's a computer, which is great. And then we just kind of, Pete, how would you describe the journey that Phoebe and Carlton go on?
Yeah, it's basically like let's just ruin the whole thing from the beginning. It's basically like a don't meet your idols situation. Like they start doing these sort of odd jobs to make money, move out of their parents' house. To make that money, they win this tech tournament against the most famous inventor in the land, whose name is
Rowan.
Okay, I've forgotten. Yep. And then you notice all these problems that this evil cyborg's creating. Then, oh no, you find out who was in charge of the evil cyborg all along. Rowan. Who wants to upload her consciousness into a computer so she can live forever. Maybe I'm just like used to these turns, but I mean, I was pretty sure Rowan was going to be evil from the very beginning.
Oh yeah,
100%.
As soon as I don't know pronouns for the characters.
She. Yeah.
As soon as she was like, interesting, you're making Floppy Knights, you say. I was like, oh, you're the big bad, aren't you? It's like, okay, I see this coming. Which, you know, it's a game that looks like it's for a younger audience, so maybe they'll be surprised.
Yeah, and when Felix the robot shows up, and there's 2 levels left after like you meet Felix, or 3 levels after you meet Felix, I'm like, so are they gonna really have this dude be the villain for like a full 3 or 4 levels? No, that doesn't seem like how this will go. There has to be a big bad behind the big bad.
I'm mad about Felix.
Why are you mad about Felix?
This is going back to some mechanical stuff. In the level where you fight Felix, outside of his like drill, he's just like standing there. He does a big old slam move around him. It looks like you are like going to be done with the fight if you kill him. And so I went all in and I was like, okay, there's a lot of enemies around, but I'm just going to rush him and do a lot of damage. And I managed to do that. And then he was like, actually, I have a second form. And then all of those enemies that were surrounding me were like, haha, fuck you. And they killed me. And so I was a little salted over that. So I came back and I killed him for that. But I was like, that was a mean trick. So now I'm warning you, dear listener.
Felix has 2 forms.
Felix has 2 forms, and don't go all in when you're not sure if it'll actually end the level.
So what was the hardest level for y'all to actually overcome? I found the last level pretty tough.
Yeah. Last one's tough. I got annoyed. Maybe it wasn't necessarily the hardest, but there are some later levels in the snow levels where you have to like take out these big piles of snow that have 3 health each. I was just kind of annoyed that I had to deal with those. Honestly, the mechanic that annoyed me the most, and it annoys me the most in Advance Wars, it annoys me the most in Fire Emblem, any strategy game, I hate Fog of War. I hate it. I can't stand it.
Why don't you like it?
Because it's terrible. I want to be able to see things. I spend my whole life seeing things. I want to see them in my games too. It's honestly, the part that annoys me is that characters are always invisible in forests. So you need to get right up next to every single forest to find them, and I hate it.
You do in the Fog of War levels. There's an entire
Yes.
level set where it's all Fog of War. But all of the, like, other than that one segment of levels, which I found that to be also, like, the Fog of War is annoying because they give you a bunch of, like, hide-and-seeky sort of objectives, like find a dude in the fog and kill him, which basically means you just traverse the whole level and you eventually find them. The snow also, until you, like, they introduce the snow stuff when you get the hooligans because Sparko, the leader of the hooligans, has a move called Crowd Surf, which lets you move through enemy tiles, and the snow counts as enemy tiles.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I did not know that either.
Yeah, it's basically telling you, hey, if you use the new units, this is way less annoying. Yeah, they do a lot of that. You know, Big Mad has a ton of HP, so if he accidentally runs into a unit hiding in the fog, you're not dead immediately like you are if you're Captain Thistle. You know, they do a good job of trying to incentivize you to use units without forcing you to use them. But if you don't, you know, if you feel comfortable with your plant monster deck and you get to the level where they introduce hooligans and you have like one hooligan card, you might feel like the appropriate thing to do is play the deck that you're comfortable with, when in fact they usually have given you a card that removes whatever the annoyance is of the level that you're facing currently. How do you find the challenge levels? So there are challenge levels for every level, basically.
Yeah, they're good. It's also like resources are fairly limited in this game. Like once you complete the objectives, that's it. There's no new objectives. You're done. So it's nice to have like a little additional place to like get stuff.
Yeah, I did only a handful of them. A lot of them are like little puzzles. Usually, it's neat. I think they're, you know, exploring other design spaces with those, which is good to see. It gives them room to grow beyond just like where the story gets you. Still would like a free play mode though.
Yeah, even if it's randomly generated, like that's fine.
And I also wish that you had access to more cards just to go completely sicko mode. Like, it would be fun to be able to go and make infinite combos and things. They gate your ability to do the most degenerate things just by your access to cards. So it would be nice to just tool around. You know?
The best cards are usually the ones that are like the iconic ones for the deck. So you can't actually like put two, what do you call it? 1,000 cuts in there. That would be really something. Why not? I know you're listening, Floppy Knights developers.
Can we talk about floppy disks?
Yes, please.
Sure.
So
finally.
Yeah. I think this game only works with floppy disks. Like if it were like CD nights or 8-track nights or anything like that, you know, cassette tape nights, I don't think it would work. I think there's a unique nostalgia for floppy disks, and I have two hypotheses why, but I'm curious to see if y'all agree with me and have a reason you think it's true.
Okay.
I have a theory already, but say what you're going to say.
Lay it on. No, I want to hear yours first. So if it's mine, I can claim I knew it before you did.
I think the reason floppy disks work so well is because they are technologically advanced enough that they can work with like a computer sci-fi situation like this, but they are also like strangely difficult for us to understand in that they are like, they're just a weird rectangle you put in a computer and it does something. That's my theory as to why floppy disks work.
That's a good guess. Gino, what do you got for us?
Because they are uniquely nostalgic for the people who are in the age range where this game is appropriate. So, like, people of our age, floppy disks were like a thing you dealt with as a child and then never again. So they've got nostalgic power to them.
Yeah, it's true. I remember that when I first got a floppy disk, and it was like a big moment for me. Like
Same.
my own
like,
floppy
wow.
disk.
I can put a whole PowerPoint presentation on this.
So those are both. Yeah, I mean, you were saying.
I have a quote to back up my
oh shit
statement.
Secondary research. I didn't go that far.
Yeah. I looked it up just now. Arthur C. Clarke had 3 laws of science fiction, and one of them is any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah, very famous quote.
Yeah, I like that one.
So, Pete, do you claim to be better than Arthur C. Clarke?
I don't. I wish I was. He was very good. But I have two hypotheses, and they sort of feed into yours. One, I don't think any subsequent storage technology has created an interface more satisfying than sliding a floppy disk.
Slide that floppy disk.
A floppy disk into a computer. Like plugging in a USB, not as good. Like dropping a CD in the tray, not as good. There's something very satisfying about inserting a floppy disk.
You got to insert that floppy disk right in the slot.
Just jam that floppy disk in there. My second hypothesis is that the floppy disk is still in the zeitgeist because it became the icon for saving things generally. Like when you hit save in Word, doesn't look like a CD, doesn't look like a USB, it looks like a floppy disk. And I think that keeps floppy disks in the zeitgeist.
I think those are both good explanations. And it definitely works for this. It is very satisfying when a level starts and the floppy disk goes into Carlton.
It is. And the floppy disks look different for the different decks too. And that was a nice touch.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so any closing thoughts on Floppy Knights?
Yes.
Good game, worth playing. It's cheap too, pick it up.
I think that there is a little bit more work to be done on Floppy Knights. I think that like some quality of life things are still nice to see. Like as I said, my kingdom for that undo button. The amount of times that I like misclicked or I moved like one space too far, and I would just like that. But I think overall it's got a lot of room to grow. I give it a solid B, and if it gets like some big expansions later on that like fill out some of the more technical stuff that we'd like to see, I think it'd be up there.
Nice. All right, and with that, I believe, Pete, it is now your turn to pick once again.
It is. It is my turn to pick, and I'm excited about this pick. This is a game I've been wanting to check out for a very long time because I think it is either going to reveal a fundamental viciousness in the American character that we often overlook, or it's already. I can tell you're already excited, or point the way to reform. I'm not sure which direction it's going to go.
That's a lot of weight to put on one game, but okay.
I know. I can tell how long I've been thinking about this. I also, though, refused to pay the full $30 for it, but until July 7th, it is 75% off.
Wow.
I know. So now's the time. So the game I want to play is Prison Architect.
Oh, okay. I was thinking that it was going to be like Roller Coaster Tycoon, but kind of it kind of is.
It is. It's Roller Coaster Tycoon, but for prisons.
Oh God, this is going to be a fraught one.
That's what I'm thinking. At the very least, it will be very interesting.
All right. So next time up, we will be playing Prison Architect. Well, thank you, Pete.
Yep, I'm glad we got a cute one in this week. It was a week where we needed a little bit more cuteness in our lives.
Thank you, Em.
This next game is going to be difficult for me because I will not participate in the prison industrial complex. So we'll see if it can incentivize me to actually develop a working prison.
Yep, and thank you, listener. And also, it's going to be difficult for you to play because navigating the Steam store without being recommended hardcore pornography is hard.
What's up with that? It's on the rise for some reason, this particular Steam sale.
Well, it already took over the Nintendo Switch store, right? So it's just branching out.
Yeah, they have a game where it's like navigate the Steam sale, and it gives you like little doodads for finding fake games that they like seeded in the sale. But that means you're navigating around the sale, which just like reveals a lot of pornography on Steam. Oh well. Well, thank you, listeners. Reminder, you can get in touch with the show at DeepListensPod on Twitter, deeplistens.libsyn.com. We have our comment sections, and deeplistenspodcast@gmail.com. You can support the show on patreon.com/deeplistens. And also, again, please, if you're in a position to do so, donate to the National Network of Abortion Funds, which you can do at abortionfunds.org/donate. All right. Till next time. Peace. And that's the show. Thank you, everyone who's been watching. And Jatsu, I saw your no zip disk nights comment. Yeah, 8-track. I feel like 8-track nights would be that's a different kind of game, though.
Yeah, you don't get to pick the night. It just like spawns 8 of them automatically. And you're like, shit, I only wanted the one.
I feel like no one knows what an 8-track is. They might not know what a floppy disk is anymore, but they really have no idea what an 8-track is.
USB nights, too. You would try to play one. It wouldn't work. And you'd have to flip it over and try to play it again.
Yep. I mean, 8-track nights, if you just spelled it NIGHTS, that's a Hotline Miami sequel.
That's a saucy game.